Good morning, good morning, good morning, and good morning, good morning, good morning. Hold on. Why is there so many buttons in this new Zoom? All right, I think I'm good. We'll let everyone get in for a moment. All right, I think, wow, a lot of people came in. It's almost like a coiled spring a little bit. All right, so let's just jump into it because obviously this is being recorded and then we'll upload it over to the YouTube and I'll send out an email to everyone sharing it. Hey, Brian. All right, so what do we got going on? So this month has been patent. And it's taken a couple twists and turns. So to begin the month, we spent the time completing the presentation, which we finally had in our sites as of last month, and it's been a project for the last X amount of years, but more notably over the last year. So we have our presentation completed. We have our even table of contents, we have a letter, we have the details, we have the value proposition, we have kind of like talk to me like I'm a fifth grader. We have the due diligence in terms of patentability, uniqueness. We have the patent, we included the abstract, the specifications, the claims. And in fact, we even have an update from the patent office that it's, I don't know, it's in one of their teams, but we actually got it from them, which is pretty cool. So everything is going lovely. Now the twist and turns is, well, actually we're not at the twist and turns yet. All right. So then we spent a lot of time aggregating and organizing all of the emails for those that are super high level, that are decision makers at large institutions that would be interested, whether directly or tangentially, in owning what we have if they believed what we had was everything in a bag of chips, right? So that is where our investment into PitchBook came in, because we were able to export, and you can only do them one by one, right? Like it's not like a database where they're like, just export everything. And you have daily limits. So it really took a long time, but we got, I think it was like 2,904 of these decision makers. Now, these are individuals that are either, the head of the Treasury of the United States, the head of the Justice Department, the head of, and then, of course we had government, also the governors of each state, their head of staffs, the senators of each state, because again, I live in New Jersey and we have what is the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, NJEDA, which makes loans to aspiring and innovative startups. Now, the difficulty we had with them was the way they make the loans is that they partner with the approved VC firms. The approved VC firms, they're not as altruistic as you would think. They're in it to make money. Okay, great, breaking news, Ant. But because our vision of TED doesn't actually make money, like it's not something that you build and then all of a sudden here's the sales plan and then this is the projected revenue, this is the cost, and then this is going to be the projected margins and net profit. That was never the vision, and that's not what we're going to do. So while we try to describe to them that it's the intellectual property that is worth the amount of money, even though the platform will not make any money. In fact, any money that comes in gets distributed to the ecosystem, i.e. the users. They were never interested in that. It's almost like you're making an Amazon argument. Hey, how can a company be worth $1 trillion and not make a profit, right? So VC firms, like every aspect of life, which I've learned really begrudgingly and reluctantly over the last 2 years, every authority and industry and institution, at least in this country, their main job is to solve 95% of the outcomes, 95% of the possibilities, 95% of the use cases that come to them, which means they have no interest in even trying to think through or be smart enough for that 5% that's outside of that scope, which is why that 5% becomes Facebook and Amazon and Tesla, and the list goes on. Because nobody early enough was able to see what they were doing and take the chance and take the risk that they knew what they were doing to ever just buy them out or take control of them. It was a little bit of, okay, I'll fund you seed money, I'll fund you angel money. And then as the company built, the interest came in, blah, blah, blah. And there is something to be said that that's really, that's probably the recipe to be that successful. Because if somebody came in, what's up, Travis? If somebody came into any one of these companies at the early stage and solved all their financial issues, well, maybe the founder wouldn't have ever gone through those financial difficulties of having to choose between eating and working or staying up 24 hours in a row, what's up, Andy, and all of the rest of it that led to the fuel, the motivation that became the company, right? So there is a yin and yang, and I don't disagree with it. I like it. I think the best should go through hell, because to go through hell means that as you've made it out of it, you have been fire tested. And I think that's a good thing. But it also is true that if you're in the 5%, you don't get any help from anything. We're fortunate enough that we've built up quite a believer list of people that believe in us that have, nudged us along the way, which is good because we're accountable to everyone. And that's been our kind of carrot and stick or whip or whatever that is. But anyway, so each one of these states have their own version of the NJEDA. So in reaching out to every one of them, to the governors, to the senators, and to their staff, the belief is at least one, maybe possibly, person in government will have the ability to use that thing in between their ears and say, wow, this can actually be something. I mean, obviously it's quite raw. The founder obviously thinks it's gone a long way. He has the patents, he has the business plan, he has all of this. But let's take that with a grain of salt. If we step into this, we're going to put our stamp on it. So by all intents and purposes, it is raw. But in looking over what is here in front of us, it makes logical sense. I can see the A to B to C to D. Now, whether it's so spaced out in like cadet land in outer space or not is a different story. But there is a clear A to B to C to D. And obviously, there's an individual that if we have a question, we can ask it to, right? Like, so the presumption that there might be someone that can do that thought process, I thought might not be so presumptuous. I'm finding out that it might have been extra presumptuous. That people in government don't actually have the wherewithal or any initiative or motivation to do anything that is outside of just pandering to those that vote for them. They're not people that are interested in finding solutions. They're interested in riding the coattails of what has been agreed upon to be the solution. Now, I might be wrong because I'm going to bring up some stuff that I actually don't know the answer to yet. I will know by the end of the day. So it's one of those things. Also, in that list, we found all of the yeah, exactly, Travis. All of the CEOs of the major companies that we think would be of interest to, plus the board members. So like Amazon and Meta and Microsoft and NVIDIA and Broadcom and Apple and Walmart and Target, Costco, Visa, maybe a couple of others, Netflix. Companies that have a significant presence in the world, have significant assets and resources, but have what we just described, a significant resource base of smart people that have something between their ears. So whether it's government or private, we have made sure that we have the contact for every single decision maker that is involved in pretty much, and I'm not being hyperbolic here, creating the future. If you can get the attention of all of these individuals, if your idea is good, you should find that somebody wants to at least learn more, right? Because the counter argument is you have such a good idea that can make $1 trillion and can revolutionize the world, and you make contact with hundreds of individuals that would potentially be interested in something like that, and at least half of them are smart enough to have something in between their ears that can deduce and analyze something like that. But for whatever reason, altogether, scaled reason, none of them want to talk to you. None of them have questions. None of them even think that you're worthy of being bothered by, despite all those, bells and whistles I just described. And that is something that we haven't actually faced yet, because a lot of what we've done, in fact, 100% of what we've done, has had the freedom to dream out loud, to dream loudly. And those that have participated in this dream during this period of time are those that have agreed with the dream, have saw what we saw, and have believed in what we've believed, whether it was believing in me, the dream, or some combination of both. Which means we're actually speaking to an audience of others like us, right? So although that I've always nudged that everyone speak their mind and tell me exactly what they think in producing and building and designing, that isn't exactly immune to the opinion of someone that doesn't believe or doesn't like you. In fact, to win one of those people over would be quite more accomplishing than to win over a person that fundamentally agrees with you but just has a dissent about one particular thing, since they come from a baseline of fundamentally being on your side, right? So it's like two Republicans walk into a bar and one orders apple juice and one orders orange juice, right? And I don't know where I'm going with that. It just popped into my head, but you could imagine that they probably would still be friends, right? And then take the counter argument of that, and I think you could probably come up with an equally silly little analogy that could actually end up becoming a funny joke, but I don't know it at the moment. So then we have that. Then we also aggregated all of the largest private equity firms in, I want to say the world, but I purposely jumped over ones that weren't in the US. So of the US, but I'm sure if you're the largest private equity firm in the US, you have offices in other countries, right? So again, I guess we can say the world, but by consequence, not by design. And we were able to get the contacts and the identities of the individuals that are like the top 10 of each, their direct emails, their direct phone numbers, and they're included in the outreach that we've done. Excuse me. Then also notable individuals like Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, or Shamat Papatia, when I've definitely butchered his name, famous, small business startup investor. I think we even have Mark Cuban somewhere in there. So others that are within the space. So we have the heads of cabinet positions. We have the heads of all elected officials in this country. We have the heads of like the top 15 or 20 market cap companies in this country, with the top 10 of those, the top 10 executives and decision makers in those companies, including the founders. About the top 40 maybe private equity firms and the top 10 of each of those. The heads of staff of those elected officials, and individual investors of note. That together equaled about 2,904 contacts. Okay, so we emailed these 2,904 contacts earlier this month. I think it was earlier this month. It was actually maybe the end of last month. I think it was actually March 21st. Okay, March 21st. And we had gotten 327 opens and clicks, about 1,000 opens, I think, but no engagement, no feedback. No one emailed us, no one did anything. Of those 327 opens and clicks, we then emailed them back at the end of last week and said, hey, listen, we're going to call your office tomorrow and try to set up a time with your assistant that we can speak for like 10, 15 minutes on the topic. And my belief was that would be a warm follow-up call because we're only emailing the individuals that open the email and click the link. Now, the link went to our website, rhinostreet.com, which has the 13-minute presentation, has the open letter to the Trump administration. It has the list of all the different companies and CEOs that we've already sent our patent to last year, and the picture of it. So it really has a comprehensive, this is what we're doing. And plus the letter, the email we sent had a little bit of a blurb. Of those 327, 307 opened that email. So it was like a 92%. And I was like, okay, great. Like, this is really super cool. Like, these people have gotten the first one, clicked, liked, got this one, know I'm calling, blah, 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 blah. So then Monday of last week, I started making these phone calls. And the part of, I guess but the twists and turns and the ups and downs of this process is really displayed in, as I call these offices, they're impossible to get in touch with these people. Now, of course, that was kind of understood. You're not going to get the head of the Treasury Secretary on the phone, right? You're not going to get the governor of Ohio on the phone right away. But I asked for the member of the staff that opened the email, and it's like you couldn't get them on the phone, or you had to leave a voicemail for them. And by the 20-somethings call on Monday, I'm like, this is just, there's better uses of time. Because if I called all 306, it would have taken me all last week. Now, would I have maybe gotten someone on the phone? Yeah. So it's not that I thought that was a bad idea and I'm shelling it. It was just that there was enough of a sample size to realize that this idea, this next step wasn't the most worthwhile. Like, there was better uses of my time. So I went ahead and what did I do? What did I do last week? So that was actually Monday and Tuesday. And then I think I had personal stuff like court stuff. I don't know. But towards the end of the week, I then decided, you know what? Let's do one more email to all of those individuals, those 2,904 individuals. And this email is going to say, in a nice way, I'm not calling your office again. It's a complete waste of my time. If you're interested, like, here's what we're doing. You know, you can own the app store of AI going forward. And that's just to say the very least. Here it is, you know, let's go. Oh, the other institution that I emailed was all of the head of the largest media conglomerates, like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Seattle Times, Boston, I don't know, like all of them, and CNBC. So all of these people are involved. Okay. So that email I just described to you, which says this is the final, and I keep closing my eyes because I'm trying to remember and think about all this stuff. There's a lot, right? So I did that Friday at 3 p.m. Now, my policy about the weekend is I just don't check any emails because Saturday to Sunday, I have my children 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. And I don't start my Saturday with anything other than I'm in dad world. And it's just something I'm never going to, like, that is non-negotiable. And then Sunday, depending on what that Saturday to Sunday looked like, I really try to get myself prepared for the week. But when you wake up at 2 in the morning every single day and then have a 24-hour extravaganza with a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old that think you're their superhero and you take it with like every blessing in the world that you are, and you go 175 miles per hour, Sunday becomes one of those days, let me just grocery shop, let me like take a little nap, let me just, because tomorrow it's war, like let's go to war. So that's what my Saturday and Sunday look like. The reason I say this to you is because I have not actually looked at my email box to know if any of those individuals from this last, sharing the story have actually responded to any single email. So what I did was I went to our email account and I exported the data of who opened and clicked. In that data, I then blacked out the phone numbers and emails because I'm not, like, that's private stuff. I'm not going to put that on this. But I want to do a screen share and go through the list of who opened and clicked. Because I do want to share with you that when we're talking about individuals that are actually looking at what we have, and again, it goes back to, this is it. Maybe if no one talks to you and no one takes your call and no one gets back to you, but they all open and look at it, you know what, Ant? Maybe the reality is you're completely crazy. Everything you did was crazy and none of it works. And nobody wants to ever have an interest in it. And the vision that you have of the future doesn't exist because these people are also smart enough and arguably much smarter that they're already building a future that you're either incongruent with or in contrast with, right? So there is an argument to be made that the openings and the clicks aren't necessarily a positive thing. They could also be a negative thing. But there also is the other side of the argument that I know I've stood in front of you for like 7 years now. I know that I'm a relatively smart person. I know I went through hell of all hells, having 237, I have 247 days without my kids living in an empty apartment, like with the only goal in mind to think about how did I get here? While I have this time, what can I do? And how can I save the world, right? And I know that sounds hyperbolic and grandiose, but when you don't even leave your house, when you don't communicate with anyone, where you just sit in an empty house miserable all day, you go through depths and look at an abyss that if you go through far enough, the abyss looks back at you, but you even get past that and realize that a voluntary acceptance of hell equals a consequential and equal outcome that you're able to prevail through said hell if you take it on voluntarily. And I know that to be true because if you're put in hell and you don't accept it, then you constantly wonder why me and why is this so bad, and you come out quite resentful. But if you're put in hell and you voluntarily accept, I'm here, now let me explore the depths that I never want to be at again and ensure that I'm able to gather enough out of this to A, never be here again, but B, to create something that no one has the ability to create because no one is foolish enough or had the poor luck to be thrown in such an abyss to ever think to continue being there, that it doesn't harm you, it only builds you. Well, that's a fire that I had that no one else did. And in making sure that I'm not like a cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, I've always kept relationships with everyone in RHINO, whether it's email, investors, phone calls, video calls, lives. There's been a very calculated, I'm lowering myself into hell and I have a rope connected to my waist and I need everyone to be on top of that water well that they're holding the rope from me descending to an infinite point that even I can't handle. And that's what I've done. So the counter is that I firmly believe that with enough eyeballs, with enough contact, with enough persistence, that we would find somebody that can make a decision that would say, you know what, I see it, let's do it. Now, whatever those next steps are, I have no idea, right? Like, so I've had, preliminary conversations with some people, and one was a very, very high, reputable, industry-leading patent buyer. They're the ones that buy on behalf for Google, right? So they're really high up. And they only buy patents that have been awarded, the non-provisionals, the utilities. And I said to them, well, do you make any exceptions? Because we have the non-provisional as of November 2023. I mean, the provisional as of November 2023, but the non-provisional as of January 2024, with our expectations being guided that it would be ruled upon and most likely awarded or with some kind of little adjustment in May of 2025. It's now April of 2025. They go, what field is it in? I said, AI. They go, we are making exceptions for AI, send it over. So they had me fill out their form, their NDA, blah, blah, blah. And they had gotten back to me for more information. Do you have a published date? Do you have, and these are things I've never even heard. I go, what are these things? They go, well, if it's if it's pending for 18 months or more, there's a publish date where others can now see what it is. Otherwise, we're just taking your word for what you submitted. And even though I gave them what I submitted and the backup paperwork to prove that the lawyer sent it and blah, 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 they said, well, the asking price you're asking for and the magnitude of what this is, we need it to at least be published so that we can see it. Please get back to us at that point. Now, the important part is when I signed the NDA and sent over all of the pertinent docs, they sent it over to their team, which then inspected it. Like, is this thing, presumably, right? Like, I don't know, but they said, send this, we're gonna get it to the team. So I know that to be true. The presumably part is that I suspect that the team went through it and said, like, is this of any value at all? So for them to then get back to me and say, when this happens, then resend it to us, I would believe that there's some value, because otherwise they would say, we're not interested, right? That makes sense to me. So, but again, I'm totally biased. I'm looking for confirming indicators, but I do not think that that's also means I'm wrong. Like, I think they would have said, kick rocks, kid, right? I also sent it to NVIDIA, and NVIDIA actually had a top-level sales team member get back to me. Now, the good and bad of this is I believe that top team sales member is contacting me thinking that I'm looking to partner with NVIDIA on something, whether I'm buying it for an enterprise or, or whether I'm looking to sell a particular thing to them, which again, you could say, well, Ant, that is kind of what you're doing, but I think in their natural mind's eye, I don't think they were thinking patent. And I could be wrong, right? Like, what do I know? But they did get back to me. And then I did respond on Friday with exactly what we're looking to do and how it could be available to them and why we've chosen them. And I sent everything to them. I don't know if they got back to me. I'll find out today in my emails. But that's pretty cool because, again, NVIDIA didn't have to get back to us. They did get back to us. NVIDIA's, I don't know, the #1 AI company in the entire world, right? Then there was another patent firm that said what we had was very interesting, blah, 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 blah. It could be worth a lot of money. If we give them 100,000, they'll do a valuation. And I was like, listen, I don't, like, whether you value it at 10 million or 100 million makes no difference to me. I need to get it in the hands of someone that can partner with me. I contacted you in the belief that you are this prestigiously large, firm that you can also play matchmaker. And if that's the case, and, you reasonably can deduce this thing is worth over X amount of money, then I fully am consenting that you take your fee, the 100,000 off the top, right? Like, hey, I value this at 10 million. Hey, I got you a partnership at 9 million. Hey, I'm giving you 8.9 million, right? Like, I'm cool with that. So I don't know what they wrote back. I don't think they wrote anything back, or they probably declined it because I think they were just kind of like, hey, send us money, and that's not happening. I also, so besides what I'm about to show you, I also, let me see if I even have it up. Hold on one second. Because I did have, okay, patent outreach list. Is this what I'm looking for? Okay. Bear with me. So also in the email, I sent out to Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, Alex Partners, Liquidex, KPMG, FTI Consulting, Pellegrino and Associates, Consor, Keystone, 2 submissions at Microsoft, the submission to video, which I followed up on, an email to Amazon, an email to Shamat, 2 emails to OpenAI. I couldn't find a way to email Meta, the official submission portal through Alphabet. Hold on, who just messaged me? Oh, thanks, Brian. I think it's 18 months. 2 emails to XAI, submission to Visa, submission to Costco, email to Netflix, 10 emails to Johnson & Johnson, submission to Procter & Gamble, submission to Walmart, 4 emails to MicroStrategy, and 4 emails to KKR. So that's aside from the large email that I'm going to show you the data on. So all of those would presumably be in my email box over the weekend or today, which again, I'm going to get to that stuff today. So it's kind of in a weird way, like my email today could be, oh my God, wow, we got response from this person, or we got this, or we got that. Or it could be like, boo, we got nothing from nobody. And should it be the latter, the emotional deduction I've given earlier, where it's like, well, maybe you just, SUCK, right? Doesn't happen at that point. It would then happen if you devise a follow-up strategy, right? So like if we have all of these people that didn't answer, didn't respond, didn't do anything, then it's kind of like, okay, enough people saw it and nobody cares. But it also could be like, you're talking to the most powerful people in the entire world. Maybe these people just don't have the time, or they didn't get back to you yet. Maybe after a couple of days, they just forgot and they don't care. Maybe it's one of those, okay, now go get them. Go get them. I understand that the whole, not following up via phone call in the first week being last week was, you felt was your time could be better spent, and presumably you did. You found a way to double up the email. Okay. Now, if you don't get a response, now you do got to call every single one of those, which I'm conceding that would have to be the next step. And upon completion of that next step, that would be where I would reasonably say, we just SUCK, I and everyone have been completely fooled to think that we know anything about anything. But again, I don't think that to be the case. But again, I'm totally biased. So let's have a little fun, because I did not go through the list I'm about to show you. But before I show this to you, let me make sure I have the stats correct. The email that was sent out on March 21st ended up with 327 opens and clicks. This is the follow-up email to the same email list, to the same 2,904 individuals. So the amount of opens and clicks hopefully will be higher. It won't be fun if it's lower. So let's just see, right? So let me do a share screen and we'll go through it together. Now, remind you, I did black out the phone numbers and the emails because I don't think that's a good idea. Okay, so let's share this screen. Okay, share. All right. So first, can everyone see the woods, like the background picture? Let me just make sure I'm on the right screen. One person tell me. Yes, okay, cool, thank you. All right, so let's go to the context. And so I did it in alphabetical order. So obviously A is first, Amazon. Andrew Jassy is the CEO to Amazon. So, maybe just by alphabetical order, we're starting with our strongest, I don't know. But this is the CEO of Amazon. Opened our email and clicked around. And I'll give you a little spoiler alert. He did the same last time as well. So I don't know what that means. I tried calling, I didn't get a hold of him. But maybe this means, you know what? Get a hold of this guy, because also what's interesting about Amazon is that they filed a patent 4 days after us, claiming kind of similar stuff. So I think we have an overlap that actually would be valuable to them. Now, these individuals of Amazon are all on the board of directors. These are the VPs and all the rest. So Amazon, by all intents and purposes, is can we say interested? I mean, what is this? 9 different people, well, actually 8 different people from Amazon opening and clicking. And maybe, you have to believe, or you don't have to, but I would presume that maybe someone from Amazon sent the email to someone else. Hey, did you see this, right? I don't know. There's a chance that in my email box right now, someone from Amazon wrote back. It could be, we think you stink, like leave us alone. But it also could be like, hey, listen, let's chat. So this is going to be a little difficult because these are, you know what? I don't think it's important. So you don't know what this person's an assistant scheduler for, but I can tell you that this person's an assistant scheduler for one of the governors or one of the senators. And the reason I know that is because it says this person's name at, and then the senator or governor's state and blah, blah, blah. But because I don't want to reveal everyone's private email, I'm going to keep this blacked out. But when you see assistant schedule or assistant to the chief of staff, deputy schedule, that's who they are. So just know that this is government related. Attorney, oh, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of this country. And spoiler alert, she actually opened and clicked our last email as well. Now, Pam Bondi, the reason why she was included was because our original email was making claim that the U.S. should own this under the guise or the what's the word I'm looking for? The goal of national defense, that to lead the world in AI is a national defense interest. So I wanted to get just any cabinet position, the belief being that they would send it over to maybe Trump or maybe someone. So Pam Bondi, the head of the Justice Department, I know I see her on TV all the time, opened and clicked, and this is the second time in a row. Chief advisor, legislative director. So these are all members, high-end members, right? Chief of staff is number 2, basically, of a particular governor or a particular senator, right? So these are a lot. So you can see it's in government hands. Not that I'm going to jump up and down that these individuals have any competence at all, but I'm playing the numbers game, like I said earlier, that at least somebody in some states might say, hey, listen, we have a fund for this stuff to fund this stuff. You know, maybe taking a moonshot or a home run swing for the right price and having the actual person, like I'm the person, might be a good idea. So we'll see. DC Chief of Staff. I think that's someone important, I guess, right? Deputy Chief of Staff, legislative directors. These are the schedulers. You would think that somebody would try to schedule. Again, Chief of Staff, schedules, assistant, executive assistants. What is pretty cool about this is that you can see at least these staff members open their emails, right? So now we know that we have direct contact with these individuals, which is a good thing, because again, when we do follow-up, maybe we can do follow-up with a phone call and an email and a phone call, and like we have ways of getting in touch with them. Emerging, I don't know what that is. I'd have to look at this, but I'm not going to look at it on this. Editorial, this is one of the editorial boards. I would have to look at this to know what newspaper. General Atlantic Partners, this is a large hedge fund. Not hedge fund, but private equity fund. I think this is the owner, Paul Stamos, actually. I actually think this person's probably worth like hundreds of billions of dollars, or tens of billions. All right, I'll have to look at that. Legal counsel, health policy advisor. Why do I have health policy advisors? I don't know what that is. You know what, let's reveal one of them, right? What did I just do? Oh, that's for senator of, I don't know. It popped up on my other screen. Oh, the partner help desk was Broadcom. Okay, anyway. Yeah, because these are emails. When I click it, it actually opens up my email, but it opens up on my home screen, which is the other screen. Okay, anyway. IHT, I don't know what that is. I think it's another newspaper. JP Morgan Asset Management. This is their private equity fund. JP Morgan is what? The largest bank in the world. These are the top 4, well, I don't know if they're top 4, but they're 4 of the top 10. Legal correspondent, I think that's government again. Legislative aid is government. Legislative assistant. So I think these are governor assistants because they legislate, not senators. Legislative correspondent, I think that's a newspaper. You know, that role of the newspaper. All right. Netflix. Ha! Reed Hastings. This is the guy that actually invented Netflix. How cool is that? And of course, that has to be a Ted, right? Ted Sarandos. But this is so cool. Ah! Reed Hastings. Like, he invented Netflix. Oh my goodness. Okay. So we have 5 from Netflix. That's pretty good. That means maybe someone saw, they emailed someone else and said, hey, did you get that? Go open your email. That's really, really cool. News editor, I don't know what that is, but it's a newspaper. You know what? Let me just click it. Why not, right? That is the Houston Chronicle. NVIDIA. This is one of our NVIDIA contacts. How cool. John Park, PhD. So presumably this is the really smart person. This is the PhD there. And I'm sure they have many, right? But okay. Whoa, New York Times. So New York Times is, oh my God. How many New York Times is that? So 343, that's 43 members of the New York Times opened our email. All right, so, you know, we have let's get back to see what they're doing. Maybe New York Times wants to run a piece or learn more. Like, I would like to do that. I would like to get in contact with them and have an op-ed or something, and we'll see how far that goes, right? Operations director schedule, policy advisor, again, government, policy and appropriations, government, politics, this would be another newspaper, political correspondent, bunch of schedulers, schedule assistants, scheduling assistants, schedulers, scheduling director. So government really does answer their email, at least the staff. I don't know if they actually do anything. Get out of here. The Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, opened and clicked our email. How cool is that? Well, we have 3 senators, Dan Sullivan, Mark Kelly, and Tommy Tuberville. Tuberville, I think, is Alabama. Mark Kelly's Arizona. Dan Sullivan, where is he from? I don't know. But 3 senators. That is pretty cool. Senator's aide. Hold on, someone's telling me where he's from. Alaska. Hey, what else is going on in Alaska? They should. And anyone living in Alaska, you guys are great. I just don't confuse Alaska for being like a hub, which means they should actually think about doing something that's a hub. Let's see. Small Business Administration. Is that the head of the Small Business Administration? Let me see. Oh, it's the press office of Small Business Administration. Okay. Senior advisor, health policy, senior policy advisor, again, all government, staff director. Hey, Visa. I think this might be the CEO of Visa. And then this is another news network. And it's 449. So let me get off share screen. Okay. So like I had said, the first email that I sent out to all of those individuals, sorry, I was just deleting something. 327 opened and clicked. This one, what was that, 449? That's in the right direction, but it also is a bit of a double-edged sword. Excuse me. Double-edged sword in the sense of, okay, and this many people, 43 people from the New York Times took a look and actually clicked, right? 8 people from, was it Netflix? No, Amazon, which really is kind of like probably the most synergistic. 5 people from Netflix, 5 people from Visa. You have the smart person at NVIDIA. And then you have every senator and governor. It's actually pretty, and then you have the treasury of the secretary of the treasury and the secretary of the Justice Department and 3 senators, like the senators themselves. All right, so that's that. So today I'll be going through all of my emails. Let's see what comes of it. Let's see if there's maybe something cool in there. I will do my best to report back. I gotta go through all of that today. Plus I have the other part of my life, which is just never ending. And the only thing I'm really going to net worth 25 million. Oh, that's it. Boo. But like we could be so lucky, right? But the only comments I'll make about the other part of my life is it's quietly becoming maybe the most profit potential. And I don't, and maybe profits, well, it's definitely not the right word because there is no amount of money I would ever take for the abuse that is being bestowed upon myself and my children. But be that as it may, it might be the greatest revenue. I don't know the word for it. The greatest contrib. It might be the single greatest contributing factor to my future net worth. I think that might be appropriate. Because they just don't stop and they continue to double down. Like, continue to double down. And there's a couple of things I'm keeping an eye on right now that I'm quietly, I don't want to say letting happen, but I'm watching it. Because if these couple of things happen the way I fear that they may, that's fine. Because I'm cognizant of it already. And if that mouse grabs that cheese, the trap is already there. So I'm hoping it doesn't grab the cheese, but if it does, it'll just be another layer to the future net worth that a lot of institutions are going to be a part of contributing. And we'll see. But I think the best way to describe it is I believe the court and that system think that this is the 8th inning. And I think that they should know that we're maybe at the top of the 3rd. That I will do this for years. I'll do this for decades more. And the reason being, I'm not guilty. I'm fighting for my children. And there's nothing you can do to me other than try to coerce and manipulate different things to make it look like I did something. But presuming that I never give up, it'll never actually work because this country still has laws and an escalating system that goes to appellate courts and goes to state Supreme Courts and goes to national Supreme Courts. And there's nothing more than I would love, and I swear, than for my case to be in front of the Supreme Court of this country. Because the fundamental argument will be, if an individual can go to the domestic violence court and freely lie about anything while signing the prerequisite that they are not willfully lying, lest the acceptance of punishment, which allows them to say what they want to get the ex parte meeting with the judge, which is just them and a judge, which means that they go in front of a judge and say whatever they want, and the judge simply says, well, since you're not lying, then we need to do this. And that this is always commensurate with the hyperbole of the lie, and I'm putting it very gracefully, which means the outcome is always a restraining order, a TRO, which means that should it be proven that a person went to this system and lied, then it should be tried for kidnapping. Instead, it's not tried for anything, because for it to be tried, the court then has to make recommendation to the prosecutor's office, who then has to criminally prosecute perjury against an individual who was sick enough to lie in the first place, but their only recourse is to continue the lie, because over the however many days that trial went, they had a lawyer that, told them their flagellant smells like roses. They have everyone, patting them on the bum saying they're correct. So their cognitive dissonance is at an all-time high. And they're now facing a consequence where either, hey, continue going, everyone has your back because this lie is a popular lie, or admit the truth and go to jail. Which means the prosecutor's office would then have to try, by all intents and purposes, someone that looks like a victim, that has mastered the art of appearing to be a victim, and crying and presenting themselves as a victim by saying the fundamental, you guys just don't understand what it's like, and now I'm being punished for coming forward, which in their mind then dissuades any future victim of domestic violence from coming forward. So there is no desire, there is no actual reasonable consequence for an individual to not lie to domestic violence court, because domestic violence court is essentially a witting accomplice to kidnapping and legalizing it. And then once that goes far, then the whole family court system, which acts on preponderance of evidence, which is a made-up legal standard, just means what's more likely than not, which anyone can argue red or black or blue or green, depending on the outcome they want, and they just need to have it 50.00001%, they all protect within themselves, because when that individual starts saying, hey, listen, this is kidnapping, the person lied, the family court, who then would be liable, then acts in a way to find that person guilty of something. So the whole system then self-corrects and self-protects to be weaponized towards that individual, which means anything further is no longer law. It's just self-protection. It's a system protecting itself under the guise of a made-up legal standard. And the reason why it never gets so far is because no individual could ever afford a lawyer that would, A, be able to finance 10 different judges I've been in front of, 4 different courthouses I've been in front of. I'm now facing my 5th opposition legal team. No one could ever afford that many lawyers. And if you had that many lawyers, it would never get that far. The system would correct on itself and just throw the other person under the bus. But the lane that I've been able to carve is that the system doesn't believe that I, as a pro se, can be a competent adversary while they protect the decisions they made. And all the while, they've allowed it to go so far that the financial liability, at the very least, is well within the 9 figures. So they continue. And in the continuance of it, it's just a system that has now on record X amount of times continually chosen one over the other, not based on law. So should this ever go to the Supreme Court, which I pray that it does, and that's my goal. So anyone watching from that side of the fence, if you think this is the 8th inning, you're out of your mind. But the actual complaint will be that if an individual is found beyond a reasonable doubt to have perjured themselves and to obtain a TRO, they must be held accountable and must be tried for kidnapping. Because in lieu of doing so, the system inherently protects and offers as accomplice to kidnapping, which this is the fundamental, at least in my opinion, reason for divorce. Because if you can criminalize and weaponize argument or disagreement, and at your worst moment run to someone who then takes the other person's children away from them, you've crossed a red line and there's no going back. You can have an argument with someone and say, oh, sorry for calling you A, B, C, D. And they can say, well, you only called it to me in the privacy of our own home, so I can deal with that. There is no going back for, oh, sorry that I took your children away and lied to every single court, and they all accomplished in forcing you and abusing you to no end for 2 years while you watched me abuse your children. Now, again, I'm not speaking about any individual. I think everyone could agree that this detail set is ubiquitous. Everyone has a story like this, right? So it's not like, oh, Ant, tell us about your case. I'm not. I'm sharing emotion based on my frustration and what I've seen, but the details I'm describing to you are really found everywhere, and that's what I'm regurgitating. I think the Supreme Court would look at this and say, wait a second. We understand why they don't prosecute the person, but in not prosecuting the person, by giving them the discretion to prosecute or not prosecute, it does leave open this political discretion. Hey, listen, we don't want to prosecute anyone who perjures for a TRO because we don't think that'd be popular amongst a particular gender or a particular race. Therefore, it would cause an upheaval that we're not prepared for. So instead of doing that, let's just punish that particular parent or those particular rights and sacrifice for the political capital that we have. I think fundamentally, you're then sacrificing and using family as currency for judicial politics, and I don't think that's okay. I think that when you go to a domestic violence court and you make claims and you're forced to sign that I'm not willfully lying unless punishment, that should it be proven that all of them were a lie and all willful lies, you must be punished. Because if not, then that is the loophole for kidnapping. And as one can see, that in such a loophole, the court will then start protecting itself because the financial liability that is exposed for them being accomplice to crime at the detriment of a particular person's parental rights. So that was a lot. That took a word gymnastics that I really hope I was able to navigate, but that's personal life. Okay, so that's really all we got. I'm going to now go through all of my emails and let's see where we're at. I'll do an update by the end of the week because whatever the emails are, you know, like my mother or father would say, don't count your chickens before they hatch. If someone emails us and says, hey, cool, like let's get back together, I want to follow up. So this Sunday, I will have a commentary for TED out, and it will identify the individuals that followed up and the exact next steps we're at, and we'll see from there. But again, my interest and goals, is to get something closed fairly soon. I'm not interested in full market price or even a large market price. I'm interested in a particular number that comes with retention. So yeah, you could have 90, 95% for this number, but I'm keeping 5 or 10%. That 5 or 10% will be a monthly recurring or some type of value that everyone is then owner of. And the belief is, hey, who are we? What can we do with this? If we get it into the right hands, they should be greatly compensated to say this was the best day of their life. They bought something for like $10 and it's worth $1 million. And in them reaping such a fantastic reward, we're all along for the ride because that 5%, which was worth, zero right now, because what can we do with it? Then becomes worth $1 bazillion. So it's kind of like one of those, what's the price to get a person's attention when they otherwise don't know who you are, and then subsequently convince them to take on all the risk to build out something that they didn't know the day before. I have to be logical with what that price is. I think I have a good handle of it. I know what I won't accept less than, and we'll see. So stay tuned for a commentary this weekend, and I hope it's a good one. I hope it's not, hey everyone, I stink and everyone stinks and like, let's figure it out. But that's all I got. So love y'all. I will look to do another live, hopefully in the next month, but I do appreciate everyone, and I'm happy you let me show face, and go RHINO.